All right, welcome in everyone to this Thanksgiving edition of Data Chat Live. I am Cameron Cowan, your host, and with me, as always, is Mike Fong. How you doing, Mike?
Not bad. It's been a great week so far. We've had plenty of World Cup matches to watch. We watched you guys play one of our guys last night. An honorable draw.
An
Everybody's
honorable
happy.
draw. And how did the UK fare? You guys also had a match, didn't you?
Well, the England team did very well. We beat our opponent 6-2, so we're very happy with that.
6-2.
6-2,
Very nice.
yeah.
I know you're not on the
Wales,
team, but well
Scotland,
done
and Northern
nonetheless.
Ireland are in fact separate countries. There is no UK team.
That's right. See, and I always thought that if you guys wanted the best result, you'd combine all the UK teams and take the best of the best and then just go kill everybody.
It would be non-PC of me to say, but we might just end up with just having the England team anyway.
Well, even though you don't have the same celebration we have this week with a couple days off for the holiday, it sounds like it's a bit of a holiday for everyone over there watching the World Cup. I know you guys take this a lot more seriously than maybe we do on this side of the pond.
Yep, we call it football, proper football. We call it soccer. I think a lot of the world take it more seriously than the US. But I mean, I know that if the US progresses into the knockout stages, I know you guys
then
will
we get a little more
excited too.
Well, even though you don't have a Thanksgiving holiday celebration, it's my understanding that Black Friday is still a thing over there and important to you, right?
Yep. Black Friday is still a big sales event, as is Cyber Monday, the following Monday.
Yeah, and that's part of what we wanted to focus on today's Data Chat was just going into the holidays. How do we make sure we still have all the right measurement, especially around those all-important marketing campaigns? Mike, I know that in your past, you've worked in retail a bit. Was it Tesco that you were at before?
Yeah, online insight.
Online insights. And
Yep.
How important was the holiday season when you were over at Tesco?
The holiday season, starting around now, was the most important season in terms of essentially Christmas orders, at least for groceries. People block out the delivery slots like now or last week. People would actually pay to have early bird access to those Christmas order delivery slots. You typically do, in a single week of Christmas, 3 or 4 times what you do in a typical week. But the December period just goes crazy with people buying sweets and candy and cakes and turkey, of course. So it's a really key period. But on a general merchandise side, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, essentially the whole of sort of November onwards becomes an incredibly important period for retail sales. They actually say that organizations that don't do well during this period basically will go into bankruptcy or administration in January.
Wow. Well, and with all of that in mind, we definitely wanted to get somebody that's familiar with the marketing side of things, someone that's run marketing campaigns themselves and understands how critical any time of seasonality is to a business. So we are excited to bring in today Kyle Woodruff. Kyle is the Executive Vice President of Marketing here at ObservePoint. Say hello to everybody, Kyle.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Hello, everybody. Great to be here, Cameron, Mike, and excited about our conversation.
Yeah, we wanted to pull Kyle in. Obviously, from an ObservePoint standpoint, Kyle is the guy that's responsible for the success of all marketing efforts here at ObservePoint. And Kyle, I know it's not just ObservePoint. You're fairly new to the organization. You joined us about 6-7 months ago. Is that right?
6 months ago. You're right.
And give the audience a little bit of background. Where have you been since, and what's your experience in marketing in general?
Yeah, I've been in marketing for about 15 years, and specifically tech marketing. So I've been in the scene for quite a while. Started at large tech companies, NetIQ, Novell, been around a long time. But for the past 12 years, I've been in that really high growth technology scene. Companies like Domo, Pluralsight, TalkDesk, all considered unicorn companies, all very high growth, and I've been in the various parts of marketing, everything from
Kyle. This is a podcast, not a job interview.
Fine. I'll stop trying to sell myself. I already have a job.
Gloating.
So
no, it's great. That's why we wanted you to join in today. And specifically the experience with a lot of these different marketing channels that go through the digital and website experience. I know that I spent a number of years, as many people on the line know, building out ad tech for Adobe, looking at different marketing channels. But Kyle, talk to us a little bit about the different paid and owned marketing channels that you've worked on and have had to track the performance of.
Yeah, you mentioned a few. Honestly, just about any marketing, paid or owned marketing channel out there, I've had an opportunity to be in charge of, to have to track, and to set up the analytics and all the tracking and reporting, and of course the action from those. Kind of across the board, everything from paid media, Google Display. Here at Observe Point, we're using all of those, including some organic SEO, website experience, and making sure we're converting traffic, to our expectations or our hopes here on the website, but also those offline channels as well, channels that are going through partners, things that you may not have as much control over, but are every bit as important and every bit as important to convert. So traffic through partners, through content syndication, through live and in-person events like these, all those channels are equally as important to make sure they're set up and convert the way you need to, especially around this time of year. Like you mentioned, you make or break your year in 2 months, a lot of times, especially in the retail industry. So every bit as important to make sure that we're set up this time of year.
Yeah, and you mentioned live events, and I think that sometimes, especially in the digital ecosystem, we sometimes overlook or forget about that even physical experiences can have a digital fingerprint to them. I think about, so I was just over in London last week with Mike when we were sponsoring an event, and in that booth, we had a QR code that people could scan. It was on a physical piece of paper, but that led to a digital experience that we were able to then track and measure the performance of. Talk to us a little bit about, like, what is that interplay and what should it be? Should they be thinking about them as one? Are they separate? How do we bridge that gap?
You should absolutely be thinking it as one experience. Multiple touch points, multiple channels, but it's all one experience. And you mentioned it, whether we want it to or not, and whether it's intentional or not, it is now people's default to go to a digital experience, even after they have met you in person. So whether you set it up that way or not, the first thing they're going to do when they leave your conversation is they're going to volunteer themselves and go find some kind of digital way to interact with your company and find out more about you. So if you haven't thought through that entire experience end to end, then you're missing the boat, and that experience is going to be broken. And often it's not going to optimize every touch point that you're going to have with them.
Yeah, especially when you think about promotions and seasonal promotions in the offline world that lead to digital experiences. I think of things like QR codes. I think of things like vanity URLs that you'll put on outdoor advertising, on billboards, things like that. A lot of the customers we're working with are validating their landing pages, trying to test those click-throughs from their various different channels. But sometimes they forget about those offline experiences that lead to online experiences and don't validate them. If it's a promotional vanity URL or QR code, it can often get overlooked and then lead to bad or broken experiences down the road. Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I've been at places where our web team had set up a great environment for the event team to build their own landing pages. It was great. Everything didn't have to go through the web team, which is fantastic. You can turn things around faster. However, it was often overlooked in any kind of a QA process. And so when we handed that over to the event team and they were writing their own content, they were creating their own UTM codes, they were implementing their own tracking, it left a lot of room for error, especially if you're handling more than just a handful of events. Oftentimes, especially before pre-COVID, events were extremely common. I've been places where we were doing 60 events a month. And 60 events a month, multiply that by 12 months, that's a lot of landing pages. Every single one of them had a unique landing page. Every single one of them had unique copy. And that is a lot to try and keep track of, especially from a team who's, they're not thinking digital first often. And they don't even know often how to track, set up, or QA what happens behind the scenes outside of, that initial landing page.
Yeah. And one of the things that I know I've encountered a fair bit since joining Observe Point is this idea of the dark side of the moon. There are pages on your website, usually campaign landing pages, that lead in to other great content and other site experiences, but nothing else points back out to them. It's a one-way road in a sense. It's still part of your website, still something that needs to be validated and tracked. But a lot of times when we, for example, do a website crawl, we start at a homepage and just say, go wherever you can, and those pages get overlooked. I would assume that that's something you and your team aren't having a problem with, that you guys keep track of all of those landing pages going in and out. Is that right?
Oh, you assume correctly. We are on top of every single page, every single link on every page, and we never forget. It is interesting that you say that, though, because I'll go back to that event world because it's very prevalent there. Campaign landing pages, or even campaign landing pages, promotional seasonal pages that are not tracked all the time, that are put out there for, as a very specific period of time. Very rarely do companies actually take those pages away. They're still out there. Traffic can still go. And if that's somebody's first interaction, that's probably where they're going to come back to you, even 3 months down the road.
Yeah.
So 3 months down the road, they might come back to that same page that you probably ignored for 3 months after your campaign ended. And you know how quickly things change. If something's changed in that 3 months, it could completely break that experience for them, and they may never get down into the funnel where you intended them to go in the first place.
Sure. Well, and Kyle, here's an example. I've been working with a partner here in EMEA, and we have this partner discovered kind of the opposite, a related problem, but kind of opposite, where this organization was reusing campaigns on a cyclical basis. So it's a charity, and they're fundraising for Christmas. And so the campaign is a Christmas campaign. So they take it down after Christmas, and then they spin it back up again around mid-November. But they don't change. It's quite a last-minute thing, right? They're thinking, oh, we did this last year. We know exactly what we're doing. Just spin up the campaign again. It'll be easy, right? Well, they forget to change the campaign codes, or they forget, so you're now attributing this year's conversions to last year's campaign code. And no one's looking at the 2021 report anymore and seeing that it's got this incredible long-lived ROI. You're looking at your 2022 report and seeing, hey, why is nothing coming through? So, and that is the as you said, another symptom of this cyclical nature, right? So we're saying conversions are happening, but they're not being tracked, whereas you were saying that the tracking is happening, but the conversions might not be.
Right. And what makes it tough is that you have probably multiple teams that are all working on that, and everybody thinks they're doing their job, which they probably are. But that coordination between the teams is really what pulls it all together and catches those, small missed pieces that really tie the whole campaign together and tell you how effective your campaign is. Yeah.
And often marketing agencies will do what you specify them to do. And if checking or quality assurance was not part of that brief, and the person giving the brief doesn't think about it, then actually, that's how things so easily fall through the cracks, especially in multi-organization or when multiple parties are involved.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I had an experience recently at a company, not Observe Point, a different company, but we were a small marketing team, and we were working with a very, very reputable agency, very well known. They do a great job. However, one thing that was missed was that communication. So we had them put together a full campaign on a product launch, and they were in charge of essentially everything. We were doing the checkoff and the okay, but basically, as soon as we gave them the green light, they were in charge of everything, including pushing a whole new section of the website live. Well, we missed some communication, as they understood our go live date to be different than our go live date.
Ooh.
And they pushed live before we were expecting. And guess who found out that campaign and that entire section of the website that the entire company was looking forward to? Guess who found it first?
The CEO.
Our CEO.
Oh.
And let me tell you how happy he was to see. And it was everything from, we hadn't QA'd the analytics and tracking yet. So that wasn't working, but we hadn't QA'd even the messaging. So the messaging wasn't exactly right. There was verbiage that was wrong. We had legal, and we were extremely highly scrutinized industry. And so legal was absolutely vital that we get that right and accurate. And that wasn't right either. And it was only live, I want to say it was live for 12 hours. But that 12 hours caused a storm that lasted months for us trying to make up for that. And it wasn't necessarily in the campaign side of things, but I tell you what, legally, we were cleaning up that mess for a long time.
Wow.
Internally, the political, kind of clout and credit, we were definitely trying to clean up because we lost credibility with the CEO pushing that live because that was our responsibility. So things like that, working with agencies can be extremely difficult, and there's so many things that can be missed in the details. It's honestly so many moving parts. It's impossible to keep your finger on all of them.
Yeah, and I think about the window we're in right now, where a lot of businesses that are on the Google stack are in the process of making the migration over to GA4. So you think about the idea of having these dedicated campaign landing pages and other assets that people potentially are even already planning on reusing for next holiday season and have used in the past. But if it goes dark for 9-10 months of the year and they miss that window where the rollover happens, all of a sudden all that goes live and you've got code on there, but it's the wrong code and you're losing all your tracking and you can't pull it in after the fact. Wow. At that point.
That is really insightful. That is very forward thinking. Like I can imagine GA 360 sunset is mid 2023. So imagine all the Halloween campaigns, the Christmas campaigns, the Thanksgiving campaigns, Black Friday campaigns. If anyone reuses those cyclical pages, they're going to have GA 360 code, which no longer even works. And They're going to be completely disjointed from a well-tracked GA4 website. That's really, that's I hope the viewers are really listening, because this is a 7-month head start on helping everyone out, listening, avoid issues like that. It's all about planning.
That's right. That nugget alone is worth you tuning in today.
And calling your friends.
That's right. I want to share a couple of other things, just some insights I found from a few of our partners and others in the ecosystem. And Kyle, get your perspective on it. Obviously, the reason we're holding the discussion today is because we're only a couple days out from Thanksgiving and going into Black Friday and then Cyber Monday. We understand from our friends over at Deloitte that for the last several number of years, we've had a significant shift to more spend in retail during the holidays happening online versus offline. So being able to not only measure those experiences, but continually validate them. I think one of the things I see that has me most agitated, I guess, is this idea that with increased spend in marketing channels over the next 6 weeks, there are some businesses that spend more over the next month and a half than they do potentially the rest of the year. Certainly from a revenue perspective and sales perspective, there's a disproportionate amount of volume coming through. With that disproportionate volume, you also have a disproportionate impact if something happens wrong. Kyle, from your experience as you look at the digital ecosystem and that concentrated opportunity for profit and also concentrated opportunity for loss, what's top of mind for you when you go into that season or seasonality in general like that?
So I'll be perfectly honest, for better or worse, the first thing I think of is making sure just our campaigns get launched on time. It doesn't, honestly, and you always try to plan ahead, but so rarely do you get far enough ahead that you think beyond that first layer of getting those campaigns launched. So, even smaller marketing teams, if they're at B2C at all, any type of retail offering, you're talking about potentially hundreds of new campaigns that you're going to launch all within a very short period of time. And trying to get those out the door is extremely difficult, and get them out the door on time to maximize all of that traffic is even more difficult, let alone going 2 or 3 layers deep to make sure everything from obviously your tracking is in place. But I know obviously GDPR, CCPA are issues as well, especially in the retail sector. And when you're collecting information, private information throughout that process, so making sure you're compliant. and making sure you know what the latest regulations are and that each of your landing pages and your campaigns comply with that. All of that is extremely, extremely difficult and can lead to obviously lost revenue, especially if your traffic is not going where you expected or you're giving them the experience you thought you're supposed to be giving them.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we're so focused on the measurement side of things, but in a purely physical world, holiday season, you push out a bunch of TV ads, a bunch of billboards. You just have to make sure your stores are open and your shelves are stocked, and you start making money. With a digital world, the first and foremost thing are my tags in the right place, or do I have the right tracking codes on my URLs? It's, do those pages load in the first place? I mean, it's like having just a big close sign on the front of your door and then sending people away. So I think there's kind of an order of operations. You're right, getting those campaigns launched, making sure that those experiences are good, they're not broken, they load fast. Just from a user experience perspective, you want to focus on kind of that front end experience, and also at the same time, then make sure all the tracking and tagging is in place so you can attribute back to measurement and ROI. Just thinking about the kind of growth and expansion of this, not only are we concerned with just overall online offline split, but our friends over at Adobe, as they usually do, publish their projections going into the season. So we're looking at a forecasted almost $210 billion for this holiday season. If I'm reading that copy there quickly, it's also 11.2 billion on Cyber Monday alone, followed closely by 9 billion on Black Friday and 5.1 billion on Thanksgiving itself. So even on the holiday, when people should be enjoying time away from their devices and computers, there's still a ton of spend. I don't know, Kyle, when you look at just the sheer volume of the amount of spend going into the holidays this year, with all that we've been through over the last couple of years with pandemic and concerns about an economic downturn, are you optimistic? What's your outlook on this holiday season and how people should be thinking about it?
It's tough, right? Different economic conditions that change year over year. We saw a huge spike of online activity as everybody went home during the pandemic, and that was the only way we could interact. Yeah. To where now it feels like even that 210 billion is probably a less incrementally more year over year than it has been in the past, and that there's an economic pullback, and we hear that all the time. I'm sure anybody out there doing business has heard about reserved spending over the next period of time until we see what happens. So yeah, it's a little scary to think about it. At the same time, $210 billion is still a lot of traffic. That is still a massive push during that holiday season, a lot of traffic online. I don't think at all that it downplays the importance of that experience that we're talking about and providing the experience, having the tracking. As a matter of fact, it's probably more important than ever, because you have to maximize every bit of traffic that comes to you, every customer, every visitor that comes to your site and goes through your digital experiences. You now can't afford to lose, because they can go somewhere else. And if you don't give them a great experience and pull them in right away, and if you're not tracking it properly, you're going to lose that, and you may never get them back because of that pullback. So, a little bit scary. I think it really emphasizes the importance of making sure that digital experience is as sound and smooth as possible.
Yep. And I think there's a number of industries. In fact, we were looking at data from the IAB, just a number of industries that, while flat or some were expecting to be down going into this holiday season, especially in the economic conditions we're in right now, we're actually seeing their projection for the second half, and especially the holiday season, actually up from what was planned for a number of sectors, including things like travel and financial services. But Mike, I know you had done a little bit of research just on what's the impact to advertising spend and just like the economic conditions. Is that impacting how much people are spending? Is that impacting how much they're paying for the advertising?
Well, a couple of points, Cameron. On your previous slide regarding the Adobe article, it said Cyber Monday spend was going to be up by 5%. Now, in retail analytics, you don't just, financially, organizations look at that, that final number, the growth number. But when we're looking at the volume of growth, right? If you have inflation is about, anywhere between 7 and 10%, depending on where you are. Well, if your revenue is only growing by 5%, you're actually getting and potentially a 10% boost from prices alone, then you're actually losing 5% from volume of sales. So actually, although the headline number might still be positive, it's actually indicative that people are having to spend more because things cost more, but that actually there is less commercial activity going on. So I just thought I'd nerd out with you guys on the contribution of volume and item price. Second thing is regarding organizations. Kyle, you said organizations have to deliver a great experience. And I would say actually organizations, they can't pull back entirely on ad spend because what you'll find right now, because some organizations are pulling back on ad spend, the way digital advertising works is, we all know it's essentially one big, massive, instantaneous auction. So with marketing budgets actually pulling back, it's a less competitive auction. I've seen stats. I'm just going to not bring this up, but we'll post it in the chat window. I read a blog post from an organization called dreamdata.io, and they've shown that actually CPMs are dropping across the major social networks, actually because the bidding is less competitive for given keywords or for given audiences. And that is definitely more likely to be apparent on the B2C side. It's usually consumers who are more impacted by, uncertainty in the economy. And then typically B2B comes back kind of maybe half a year to a year later. It's kind of how the economic cycle goes. But actually, we're seeing, because things are getting more competitive, as organizations have to compete better and better for a declining number of consumer dollars, we're seeing that actually B2B organizations, probably spending around the same amount on ads. And so ultimately, I think, Cameron, to kind of wrap up, and let me just post that in the link. We are live. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to chime in. We always forget to mention that, don't we? So that's that blog post. I think ultimately organizations deliver a great experience, but don't pull back on marketing too much. You will potentially be in a position, depending on your vertical, you may be in a position to actually bring in a better ROI, but on a smaller absolute spend. So that's one point. And ultimately, the quality, as Kyle says, those have to be absolutely spot on, right? I've clicked on 2 Facebook adverts myself in the last month, and 2 of them went to failed experiences, a page not found or a product not available. So think how much that cost to purchase, my eyeballs on that advert and that click through, and then think how much revenue they got from me.
Yeah.
0.
Oh. Yeah, I was talking to a retail customer of ours just last week, and they said that they've got a product catalog of over 250,000 product pages in their Google product feed, and it's consistently got gaps and things that just aren't there, aren't found, out of inventory. And so they're actually going to start using ObservePoint to scan the landing pages of all 250,000 of those products in their Google product feed to make sure it's continually up to date, especially over the next 6 weeks as it's live. I think that's the big takeaway for me. And the call to action is, whether you're an ObservePoint customer or not, use some of these principles to really pay attention to what's happening during whatever seasonality seasons you have. If the holidays is a big peak for you, you should be looking at your landing pages probably every day, maybe intraday, just to make sure they're working and working well. For most of us, even if we have sites that are tens or hundreds of thousands of pages large, the number of dedicated landing pages we have is actually pretty finite. We're talking about maybe 100, 200, 300 pages at most for most brands. But to be able to audit those and check, is the page loading, or is it a broken experience like you said you had, Mike? Is it loading quickly and meeting speed thresholds that I have? As Kyle, you've talked about, is the right tracking on the site, both from a tag perspective of the analytics and other advertising tags there, as well as are all the right tracking parameters and campaign codes there to help me understand that ROI and measurement? All of that should be top of mind for us as we go into any peak season. I know for many of you in, once again, retail, travel and hospitality, financial services, this is a big hit. So one of the other things, and the last thing we want to end off with here, is if you've ever seen a DataChat live before, or if you've even ever been to the ObservePoint website, you know that we have a free trial. Definitely want to extend that offer, but rather than 14-day, I'm going to call an audible. I think, Kyle, I have your blessing on this from the rest of the marketing team. Anybody that signs up for that free trial between now and Black Friday, so in the next 3 days, we're going to extend that free trial to a full month. So we want to make sure that you all have the tools you need to validate your campaign landing pages, that you're getting the right data, and that you're delivering exceptional experiences. So between now and Black Friday, get in, give Observe Point a try. If you're already a customer, start using it for those landing pages. And if you have any questions about how to do that, folks like Mike, me, myself, your CSMs, we're all happy to help you get that up and rolling. But just a great opportunity to really make an impact to the next several months as we close out the year. All right, final words. It is week of Thanksgiving. So Mike, even though you don't celebrate, anything you're thankful for that you want to share with the audience headed into the peak Black Friday and Cyber Monday weekend?
Cameron, I'm thankful for our collaborations and your sense of humor, and I can't believe you didn't call this the Observe Point Black Friday sale.
And it's even got a black background. Major miss. And that's why I'm not in marketing. So to our chief marketing expert on the call, Kyle, anything you're thankful for headed into Thanksgiving holiday?
You guys, we are lucky. Anybody here on this call is just lucky for our position in life and how fortunate we are. And so be thankful for where you're sitting today. And I'm thankful to be able to be on the show this week and be able to have this conversation with you guys, and would love to have a conversation with anybody here on this DataChat Live today.
Well said. I am absolutely thrilled you could join us, Kyle. I love working with you and Mike every day. The customers we have the privilege of working with across the globe, some of the greatest brands in the world. So everybody, on that note, have a great holiday weekend. Best of luck on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, throughout the holidays. For Mike Fong, Kyle Woodruff, I am Cameron Cowan. Thanks for joining us on DataChat Live.
We'll see everybody.
Thank you, everybody.